I feel so frustrated today and there is literally no reason. I don't know why I'm frustrated. Have you ever thought that to yourself? I know I have. And if you want to know why you're actually frustrated and you want to learn a little bit more about that sensation that you get and that you struggle to get out of, you're going to learn so much in this video. And by the end of this video, you don't only know why you get frustrated, where it comes from, what the purpose of it is, but you also will have a lot of great hinters on how to get rid of that frustration and how to manage it for the better. So let's get into it.
So Liz, there's been lots of questions that we've been reviewing over some time, trying to work out what do people really want to understand about frustration, or what do we really want them to understand about it?
What did we used to want to understand about frustration when we didn't know what we know now?
Yeah, that's good. And the first question that I'd like to ask, or the question that I'd like to ask now, is why do people think that they feel frustration but they have no reason for it? Or they can't put their finger on what the frustration may be. So I wanted to ask you, what do we mean by that question when we're talking about it from our perspective? What do we think that they mean when it comes to frustration and not being able to feel or not knowing what it is that's creating it?
Well, I'm sure everyone who's watching this can think back to a moment where they were like, oh, I'm just so frustrated. I don't know why. No, I'm just frustrated. There is nothing you can do. You can't help me. It's just the way I'm feeling at the moment. No, I'm just sad, you know. That's just how I'm feeling. I think everyone can think back to a moment where the emotions kind of caught up to us and we then went like, there is nothing that has caused this frustration or the sadness. So that's what we mean by that. And frustration really is just that physical feeling of, or physically or mentally being bothered or being irritated by something. Annoyed. So that's what I would say the question means.
And extended out, it also include like anxious or worry.
Yeah, for sure.
Is it possible?
No.
Why?
It's not possible one bit. Because I would invite everyone, instead of me just giving the answer, I would invite everyone to ask the question, have you ever asked yourself, why do you have the ability from a physical sense perspective to feel frustrated? You probably haven't. So now that you're thinking about that, I'm going to give you the answer. There'll always be a reason that we are frustrated.
Yeah.
Frustration and even sadness is the physical being's way of communicating to us that there is a weakness that it has sensed. From a young person's or a baby's perspective, it needed a way, the physical being needed a way to communicate to our parents or our carers that there was a weakness that needed fulfillment to help us to survive. So it's a physical survival need to be able to communicate, hello, this body is hungry. Hello, this body needs sleep. Excuse me, running way too hot over here. Can someone help this little person? So in simple terms, frustration is simply a physical being's way to communicate that there is something that requires us to look at it and then fulfill it. You may say it is a natural alarm for us.
Yeah. Even from a mental perspective, it's impossible because the mind, full of thoughts, is always asking us questions. Is that right? Is that wrong?
Yeah.
That's why we find that we overthink things. A thought pops into our head. That thought that pops into our head is going, it's a bit sus. That's a bit confusing. Is what that person is saying and doing two different things? Is that contradicting whilst they're saying for me to do that? Okay. Well, I thought that was orange, but you're now telling me that's yellow. Okay, they're different shades of orange. What's the differences? For anything that's going to be confusing, the thoughts in our mind are going to spark up and say, can you please find me an answer? There seems to be a weakness in what you or what I am thinking or what we think and what others are telling us to think. So it's actually a beautiful, as we've said, an alarm, a response to say, please look at something. So feeling frustration for no reason, well, you're born feeling it physically. You learn to feel it mentally. And then you will learn to enact it yourself when you're managing your thoughts and physical beings, and ask yourself the question where you're in the now going, this does not sound right. I'm using my mind, the thoughts that's in it. I'm comparing it to what I'm being told outside. I'm checking it over here and something doesn't gel. So there's always going to be something from a physical, from a mental, and there's always going to be something from somebody else who raises an alarm, who gets frustrated, and then we go, now we get frustrated. Well, why are we frustrated? Because I wasn't frustrated until that person got frustrated, and my God, there's an alarm. So is that frustration that they're presenting to me something that they find a weakness in that I need to share that same response with?
Something I want to add, if that's okay.
Please.
We're not saying that you're lying and you never have felt frustrated without you knowing why you were frustrated. We believe you. I've been there many, many times myself.
Pick me.
You too. So we're not saying that that is a lie. We're not saying it's impossible, that you think it's possible. We're saying from a natural and necessary perspective, if you understand how frustration, how your mind and how your physical being work, then you would know that there is always a reason why you feel frustration.
I got asked a question many times over the research period. Phil, when you're coming to me after you've been helping somebody else with their weaknesses and their frustration, are you bringing that frustration to me with my weakness? And I'd say no. I'd straight up no. I can handle that. I can manage that. As then I learnt the mind, the thoughts manager, the physical being, learned that there's got to be some pieces there. You can't say no. So my blanket no was just unbelievably wrong. Was I managing that and trying to be better with that? Yes, but unless you really realise you're doing it, how do you manage it to a better state? You can't. So I've been very wrong with the understanding of having frustration where I go, oh, I'm not frustrated because of them. It's because what you're doing, not knowing that what I would be presenting 5, 10, 15 years later was, oh my God, I'm so sorry I got frustrated. Because I didn't realise that that was the precursor that was an alarm that I'm then alarming others with, trying to fix them with their weaknesses, putting them in frustration whilst they were already in frustration. Oh, it's a nightmare. So we cannot possibly be frustrated without having no reason for it. Testament to it.
Question that for me then would pop up, why don't we know what the reason is?
I think that, do you remember over the last 5 years I said to you that I had made some fatal mistakes? I'm saying that frustration and sadness and crying is not necessary whilst I'm frustrated. Total contradiction, total obvious. And then in the last 5 or 6 years, I've really concentrated on, oh my goodness, you can be as sad as you like. You can be as frustrated as you like. I now understand. You want to cry? Cry. I'll happily sit here with you for however long it takes. Well, if it's going to take half a day, just let me go and do some other things, but I'll come back. So we don't know what frustration is there for. So if you don't know what frustration is there for, how do you look for being frustrated? And if you don't know what frustration is leading you to, how do you know to look for weaknesses, for example? And if you aren't taught these things, how do you know what is triggering them? You don't. So I think most of us go through the world not really concentrating on frustration and what is causing it. So we don't know. It's our natural response to our physical, mental being, to our interactions in this world. I don't think that. How do you know what you don't know, and how do you then look for what you don't know if you don't know it? You can't. So that'd be the first answer. What about you?
Why don't we know what it comes from, the frustration?
Yeah.
I think because we've never been taught. So that definitely is the first thing. We've never been taught why frustration is even there. I'm pretty sure when I asked the question before of why do you even have the physical ability to get frustrated, I don't know how many people really would have thought about that question and a possible answer before today. The next thing is, for me, one of the more obvious ones is that we are not allowed to have weaknesses as grown children, teens, and adults. And so if I, as an adult, am not allowed to have weaknesses because weaknesses are seen as something bad and wrong to have, something I should be ashamed for because, goodness me, I'm 29, by now I should know everything there is to know in this world, then I cover my weaknesses up. I don't want to see my own weaknesses, meaning when I feel frustrated, the last thing I want to do is look for a weakness that I may potentially have that I could improve upon, even though that would be the proper way to do it, to get out of frustration and feel curiosity and excitement and even happiness.
Now, just touching on, you've made it about why don't we understand weaknesses rather than why don't we understand about frustration.
Well, for me, they are so linked.
Well, so I was just going to clear that up for others. Yeah. I knew what you meant.
Yeah.
The number one weakness that we have in our world is our frustration when it is not managed correctly. And if we're not taught about it, how then do you know where it's coming from and what to do with it? So we know that weaknesses are the greatest opportunity and starting point for all learning, improvement and better. And frustration, sadness, and even the presentation of that cry leads us to weaknesses. What we found is that the biggest weakness that we have in our world is our use of sadness, frustration and crying, not from a natural and necessary perspective, but from an unnatural and an unnecessary perspective. So we're using frustration, or we're feeling frustration when we don't need to. Because what happens is that we're supposed to go to weaknesses and fulfill them, but we're not fulfilling them. So that's what I took from what you said. But if I've got that wrong, let me know.
I agree. It's a cycle. So why don't we know where our frustration comes from? Well, because we've not been taught about the frustration. Also because we've never been taught that weaknesses are actually a great thing. Then because we don't know that weaknesses are a great thing and we don't want to look at them, it causes more frustration in us, creating this horrible cycle of unhappiness.
And I'll go back to your main point. One of the highlights for me is that why do I feel frustrated all the time, but I can't pinpoint what it's from, or that there is no reason? It's because of exactly what you said. Because we don't understand it, we've covered it up. And you'll find that basically humans will live in two real worlds in their mind, so in their thoughts and their actions. For whenever there is frustration, sadness or crying or weaknesses, they usually either run away from them and go and hide, or they will, okay, let's change the point and make everything happy. Now, the negative is mostly men. The positive is mostly female. I'm not saying that we can't do both, because we do both, but it is more male to do negative cover-up and female to do positive cover-up. Negative cover-up, go and hide in my corner. I'm going to go and hide at work or in my shed, or drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes and drugs, etc., etc. On the other hand, the females is the more positive cover-up, because they're the bearers and raisers of children, including the husband and partner. So they've got to change the point, because otherwise everyone would go and hide in a corner, stay at work, hide in their shed, etc., etc., etc. So why don't we know why we feel frustrated? Because we've mastered the art of covering it all up.
So if I'm watching this, I get what we've talked about so far. So there is a reason that I'm frustrated. I get that now. There is always something from a physical or a mental perspective. There is a weakness that my mind or my physical being is trying to communicate to me. I just didn't know that before today. I had no clue. So really it's just an alarm. It's myself communicating to myself How do I then, if I'm at the point that I'm like, okay, I get all that, but I really don't want to be frustrated anymore. I want to know where my frustration comes from and I want to fix that. How do I do that as the viewer?
Well, first of all, I would just look at being aware of where it could come from, understanding where they come from mostly.
And where would I look?
Physical, mental, relationships, financial, and then you can choose from there depending on what you're interacting with yourself. But usually it's either your physical being is after needs that we don't look after properly. Mentally, we're not looking after ourselves and our thoughts and how to think better. And with our relationships, we are not working on cohesion and better language and better communication and actually listening to each other. Which comes from, we don't really talk about our feelings, our sadness, our frustration, our want to cry from a natural and necessary perspective, or our anger, disapproval, disappointment, and where we could be better with that. We're not aligned with that.
I was going to say, we talk about it too much without looking at what we actually need to do about it.
Yeah. That's right. Yes, without doing anything.
Because I do think people talk about it, they just don't do the work that is required to get over it. If you and I were to talk about frustration, we would go, I'm really frustrated today. Okay, what's the challenge? Well, I think this is the challenge. Have you considered that that might be the challenge? Ooh, okay, that could be the challenge. Yeah. Okay, what are the choices? How can we fix this to then get out of the frustration as quickly as possible, solve the problem, and then get to being curious, excited, and happy? Yeah. That's how we're meant to do it, yes?
100%. So what would I do in the initial stage? I can tell you that frustration, always starting from the foundation, will come from your physical being. So I'd be setting a purpose, an expectation, standards and rules to get myself to the best state that I can from a physical perspective. And I'm not saying lose weight. I'm not saying go to the gym every day. What I'm saying is find out what your physical being requires from a nutrients in, from a sleep perspective. And when I say nutrients in, the better of the foods. You can certainly eat McDonald's and KFC and all that stuff, but unfortunately, you're not going to get the nutrients that the body requires to run at its performance, and you're going to set off alarms. So for example, eating too much fat will set off an alarm that needs a counteraction to offset the fat. Have too much tea, coffee, beer, it sets off an alarm for you to have more water to dilute it. So get yourself back to as closer to nature as possible with regards to the food that you're consuming, anything you're consuming. Sleep is important. However, I know a lot of people say it's very hard to sleep when I'm overthinking things, or I don't get these thoughts out of my head, and how do I fulfill them, and what are they for? I don't get that. But do half an hour walk, swim, something every day, just to get yourself moving. It's just not about getting fit. It's not about getting healthy. It's just start working with your physical being. Set a purpose to start working with your physical being to understand its physical needs, because it's been alarming you, sending you sadness, frustration, and crying ever since you were born, to learn what it is to fulfill it. And everyone's is a little bit different. So it's up for you to listen to that communication system that your physical being has, asking for help. Then I would set it from a mental perspective. And what I would do is I would start to understand what we're telling you here. I would watch all of the videos that we're explaining. I would want to understand my mind, full of thoughts, and my ability to manage it, and what skills and beliefs I need to instill or learn or understand and go and practice in life to find out how to understand life, to be better with it. So I'd go after a physical perspective, from a purpose perspective. I'd go after a mental perspective. And I'd go after understanding as much as I possibly can about how to communicate in relationships, how to be better with those relationships. Because here's the key. Physically, mentally, yourself and you developing yourself and then working on those relationships is key to helping you with everything important in life. And that's where I'd start. I mean, I could go on for hours and days and weeks and months, as I have in researching this to tell people what to do, but that's where I would start. By doing that, setting the purpose for physical, setting the purpose for mental. Don't think you can only have one purpose. You have purposes for everything. Setting purpose for going after better relationships. Whilst you're doing that and going after that, every time you feel sad or frustrated, you will then get in touch with it to go, oh, what is that telling me I need to do about my physical being? What does that mean I need to do with my mental ability? What does that mean I need to do with my relationships? And then you'll start to get in touch with those frustrating times from a natural and a necessary perspective, and then be able to work on what you need to learn, improve, and be better with. Yourself?
I definitely think if you want to be less frustrated, change the way that you're looking at your frustration and see frustration, as Phil just explained, simply as a communication tool. What is my frustration trying to tell me, and what could I possibly take from that? And then I think the next important step is the frustration is not just there for you to feel frustrated. You actually have to do something about it. And I think that's a step that a lot of people are missing. If I'm frustrated, whether that's from a physical perspective or a mental perspective, get up and do something about it. If I know how to fix it, go and fix it. We a lot of times think that frustration is the reason for our procrastination. Is it procrastination? Procrastination. For that one. As the reason that we're not doing something, but it's actually the other way around. It's because we're not fulfilling our frustration and we're kind of sitting in that spiral, is because we're struggling to do things. So if you really take it to heart to, when you see something, when you're frustrated, you know how to fix it and you go and do it, you will find that you become so much more productive and fix a lot of other frustrations or emotions. So those would be the two things for me on how to get rid of a lot of frustration. See it differently, see it as a way of communicating for yourself, and do something about it when you see it.
Maybe in line with that, you can get the viewers to get in touch with us if they wish to have an understanding of what beliefs we practice or some skills that we instill and understand in our life that would help them to see frustration for the way that it should be seen, not the way that it is seen, that will then open their eyes up to what is actually there.
Do you want me to give them all the little bits and then we close it off?
Let's do it.
All right. So as Phil said, we do have an amazing set of beliefs and even skills, how we find our frustration, how we deal with it, how we then manage it to a better state, and the beliefs that we used to have, which were negative, limiting, which helped us to actually get stuck in that frustration, and the beliefs that we've now replaced that with to be better. So if you want to know more about that, please let us know, because we'd love to share. We're going to put some resources down below. Feel free to jump on our website and you'll find out a little bit more. If you have any questions about what we talked about, you've got specific thoughts that you want to share with us, or you would like us to do a video on something, just pop the thoughts down below in the comments, please. And please do us the favor, like the video, subscribe us, and check out our other videos. And we will see you soon.
Thank you.